I joined the company, Radnor, in May of 2006. A lot of the attributes that you see in this case are similar to things that you see all the time. The company was not particularly well positioned. Some of the things that were a little bit unique, one was that the owner, if you will, the 80% plus owner of the business was the CEO. There was a 4-person board, Jose being one for a period of time, and 2 others who were 2 people who were deemed insiders. So there was really only one person that was deemed an outside board member, which created some interesting dynamics as the case unfolded. And as Jose talked about, Nat City sort of redefined the borrowing base for us. And I'm not going to say that it was inappropriate. It was just a surprise and really put us in a situation where it was very, very difficult to go on. From a company perspective, I think everyone was trying to do the right thing. I will bring out the old saw that we were trying to maximize value for all of our constituents, because that's exactly what we were trying to do.
Except us.
The problem was when you looked at the EBITDA, you saw it was difficult to see it getting beyond Tenenbaum, which was really what the issue was. And we hired Lehman Brothers to do, this was prior to the filing, to go out and run a normal investment banking process, which they did, and they did a very credible job at it. The problem was the company didn't show particularly well. Lehman, quite frankly, was having trouble coming up with a credible out-of-bankruptcy sale process. So that's sort of where we stood as we entered into the bankruptcy. And Amit, why don't I turn it to you, and you can pick up from there.
Yeah. So we started advising Tenenbaum when they started having the issues with Nat City, and at that point, we did what usually come in to do, is look at the restructuring alternatives. And I'm sure when everyone's in these situations, the same kind of things was: do you try to do a plan here, a reorg plan here? You had secured debt, you had unsecured creditors, you had bond debt. Or do you try to do a sale process? And if you're going to do a sale process, are you covered, or do you want to be the credit bidder? What kind of play do you want to make here? And as Stan mentioned, it was difficult to get the right valuation on the company when you had all kinds of issues occurring. And we started going through the process that everyone thinks about: is, all right, what's the best way to do this from a time perspective? To minimize the burn, the fees, give certainty to the situation. And that's when we started embarking on a 363 thought process of going, okay, look, it's probably best to get, minimize disruption in the company. There's already enough problems, as Stan was mentioning. So we said it's the best approach will be to try to do a credit bid here in 363, establish some type of floor here. And if there's a process or a sale process that can come forward and someone will overbid it, great. If not, you can control it. And where we ran into issues was we started negotiating, like I'm sure everyone here sees in situations, about doing the DIP. We're the secured lender. Tenenbaum was a secured lender in the deal. We started working with the company, and of course we wanted them to have a very short time frame. We wanted to make sure that the costs were minimum. We had, wanted to roll up the pre-petition debt, all kinds of things. And
Stan, how'd you feel about that? Were you pretty much at their mercy at that point?
Well, no, not really. We negotiated hard, and as a result, because we had already jump-started the process with Lehman Brothers having been out in the marketplace, we had adequate time. I'm not going to suggest that we did not have adequate time. We just had a shortage of buyers.
Well, I think the question Joe is saying is, how did it go? Look, in the beginning of the discussions on the DIP side, it was us dictating, saying this is what the things we want, and I'm sure everyone sees the situation, and the debtor made a strong move, which was to bring in Silver Point, and said, we don't need your money for the DIP. We'll use Silver Point. And then they started pushing back in a lot of areas. for our process. And that's where we had to make some decisions where, and I think this is one of the major issues that people have to see in these deals is, as a secured creditor, what is your obligations to the estate as far as making sure the estate is administratively solvent. And that's where there were a number of fees, dollars that were coming in that we had to address, and that's where we had a lot of pushback and a lot of discussion with the company was, look, as a secured creditor, I mean, is it our obligation to be on the hook for these administrative expenses? And the debtor pushed back very hard and said, look, we may not want to do this process with you unless you can cover this. Why shouldn't we just convert this? And we talked about that. We talked about, maybe we should just convert it and, get a trustee and then try to get get the assets out that way. It obviously is a very messy way to go. So instead, we worked with the debtors on putting together an APA that basically took care of the administrative expenses into line item buckets. It wasn't one big bucket for the debtor to go after. It was very line item by line item that reduced the purchase price if certain dollars weren't spent. But it was a lot of back and forth on should we pick these expenses up or not. And we obviously had to go through the whole process of, do you establish a floor? What do you want to do for the credit bid standpoint? Do we want to be the stalking horse was another issue. That we had to play into, and frankly, the committee at that point was obviously threatening to derail everything. If you do this, no one's going to show up, and we had to weigh, that litigation threat versus just trying to get the assets out of bankruptcy as quickly as possible.